I had some more thoughts about the modern reframing of human trafficking. The bequeathing of intense, incredible amounts of wealth to children that people have absolutely no connection to. Traditional adoption, parents, whether they have children or not, supposed to be. Now, some manipulate the system, and my family has encountered some of these people. They manipulate the system, and sometimes people are forced to give up their children, and they're horrible parents. Uh, this happened to one of my relatives, and the children, they're not treated well. But traditional adoption is supposed to be that parents that want more kids and they're loving, and they have a stable, secure environment. And modern times now you have single parents who adopt because single parents has become something um, commonplace. There's not so much stigma before. But that being said, people will be annulled, people will get divorced. Now I'm speaking. Now we're going to move into the realm of faith. Now, single parents within the church, it's a sad thing. It's beautiful if these people, if they find a good spouse. Sometimes, sometimes things fail the first time, so you try again, and then you're a success, or the third time even. It's not uncommon. But again, we're again with this also moving into the realm of faith. It's more beautiful to have a strong, secure nuclear family, and I'm not going to discuss about same-sex parenting or anything. That's not what this video is about. But I will say that it's more beautiful to have a full, intact family there for that child, and not to have somebody, off on the horizon who's the one, the sugar daddy or sugar mama throwing money at somebody. There's no beauty in that. Only, only sadness. And when you go with, the church seeing lots of single parents, then we come back to Papa Francisco when he's writing about the problem of divorce and annulments within the church. And people who are from the first world, we'll say, from the very large, powerful, economically wealthy countries, they're the biggest ones that criticize what he wrote about it, except a couple of uh, let me see, one European cardinal and one African cardinal criticized it. But having spent as much time in the Middle East and in developing Asia as I have, I know what goes on. If you have money, you can get an annulment quickly. And when you're poor, many times people don't even get an annulment. They have a second family. Sometimes they keep in contact with the children, the parent that moved on, the non custodial. Sometimes they don't. And this is the inherent problem because people are shamed. Oh, your annulment's not done. You're living with somebody. So they move to another city with their new family. And this isn't, I disagree with those people who would, point a finger at those families and criticize them. Yeah, part of this is a moral problem, but also it's monetary because they can't afford annulment. Or even if they could, let's say they're middle class in the Middle East or in any kind of pan Pacific country, and they have to wait a year because the tribunals are so overburdened. And the churches in these countries generally are not so wealthy. If you travel all over Asia and you look at some of the traditional churches that are built there, you're going to find that they're not built in the past 50 years. You travel to Europe, the same is true. The great bulk of the churches were built not in the past 50 years. And yeah, they last longer, but also this is also a sign of lack of wealth. And so when some rich guy or rich girl stands up and says, "Yeah, I want an annulment. I've had it. I'm done," and they pay for that annulment in cash immediately, it kind of grinds it grinds that squeaky wheel, so to speak. Nothing illegal has happened here. You do have to pay for an annulment. Um, Different countries, it's different prices and different mechanisms involved. Some it's cheaper because less mechanisms involved. Some more. Some not only do you have to deal with the church tribunal, but then it transposes over to dealing with the state too. So you have to deal with it in two different areas. So that cost goes up. Now, so that being said, when we have people stepping up and saying, "Oh yeah, I can help this family. Oh yeah, I'll adopt that child right there," or "Oh yeah, I'll adopt your whole family and whatever that child needs money, just call this lawyer or talk to this bank fiduciary agent, and you'll get money dispersed." That it doesn't. The family may say, "Oh, we don't have to worry about money anymore. We'll always have food, always have rice or bread." That's a great relief. But yet it commoditizes their family, and it allows an outsider to exert a kind of control over their family. And now, when somebody is using somebody's egg or somebody's sperm, uh, that's the maximum kind of control that somebody could do, because you control nothing. You have no connection to those inherited characteristics other than whether haploid or diploid, depending on whether a male or female part of the DNA. And monetarily, you have absolutely no control at all. You could walk away, that's it. But then you'll be walking back into poverty again. So, within looking at the eyes of faith, it becomes an even bigger problem. And we're dealing with families that are in crisis, albeit not a severe existential crisis. It's still a crisis nonetheless. They can't move forward in life because the annulment's not done, or because somebody else greased the wheel first. Their annulment's being stalled because of such and such. They won't agree to such and such, or somebody just stepped back and said, "You know what? Our tribunal is going to sit on your annulment for a while," or there's a procedural problem, and we need to research this because there's a procedural error in your marriage, which also was going to pass over into the annulment unless we fix this and research it. These things happen to families. They can't move forward. And, especially a woman in these kind of situations, especially in the developing world, you know what this is for her? It's a sentence to poverty. And so, my the idea I'm putting forth here is these kinds of reframing of human trafficking, donating an egg or a sperm. First of all, as a Catholic, the question will be how many eggs were destroyed or how much sperm was destroyed. Or no, fertilized eggs and fertilized sperm were destroyed while you were, creating this one properly fertilized, properly implanted oocyte within, I think it would be an oocyte. Gametes. I don't know. It's been a while since I've had biology. I guess it would be a zygote. Anyway, this baby, while it's being implanted, how many others were destroyed? And then also, you would wonder, okay, this person isn't married. We're creating an automatic single parent family just like that. What about the child? What about their faith upbringing? Or is this woman in this situation, or I guess even this man in this situation, um, because they're in poverty, their annulment's not finished, and so their new guy or girl said, "Hey, I guess it puts food on the table." These are the things that we have to consider within the realm of moral theology when you look at it through the eyes of faith. And then when you look at it through the eyes of faith and you see millionaires, especially Catholic or Orthodox, and throwing around their sperm or their eggs to have, potentially, a couple of hundred babies around there with no connection to them, how does this impact the faith as a corporate entity? Ecclesia, the church. If we have people like this within the church, and people are going to be like, oh, wow, they're Catholic, or oh, yeah, he's Orthodox. Yeah, wow, look what he's done in his life. Yeah, look at all of his kids. Oh, that's okay. No, it's not. There's a more in-depth consideration of the moral peculiarities of a situation like that could be immoral. They could be unethical. They could actually be creating a loss of life that's compounded for every life that's made. Specifically talking about the fertilized eggs that are destroyed. I think they're called zygotes. I think it's a zygote. The gametes is the individual ones. It's been a while since I've had reproductive biology. But we'll call them fetuses, because depends whether you're Protestant or Catholic or Orthodox or Jewish or Muslim, when exactly implant, or if you're traditional Chinese, when does actual implantation of the soul take place? So we'll just call them babies. That way we can all agree on that. So this, there's a lot of implications that, that are just just a knee-jerk reaction. They're not even on people's minds. People just like, oh, another millionaire. Yeah, he wants to have 20 kids out there, and people chuckle. Then you have people who secretly, we've encountered some of these people the past 10 years, secretly have multiple wives. I've encountered a couple of girls that, generally I've only encountered this in a couple of tribes in Africa, but I have seen it in the States, a girl that has a couple of men. You don't see it as much. Like I said, even in Africa, it's only a couple of tribes that practice that, that kind of polyandry. But that being said, what does this do for the future of the church, for the future of Christianity? Sorry, just got a notice there. But so I think there's a lot deeper things to consider with this than people think about in a knee-jerk chuckle or a knee-jerk eye roll. There's a lot deeper implications, and they're economic as well as moral. And and in light of Laudato Si, I think it even goes further than we would think, without first taking a long pause to think. And the bedrock of the church is families, immediate, extended, and without speaking of same-sex families, that's a different issue that I believe in time we'll sort it out. And the thing though is preserving the sanctity of the sacrament of marriage without allowing it to be ridiculed or to be put on a table to be scorned. I think we need to have more serious, uh, just to take a lot more serious this, this apostolic peace, as well as consider things going on in modern culture. What what do they do? What do they do for the future of the church? Uh, what do they do? The greatest begrudgment, the greatest sin that somebody could have is, ignoring of the Holy Spirit, which is rejection of repentance, rejection of the call to, to come to the altar, the call to accept Christ, the call to change. It's not as much an event as it is a process. And, we, just like St. Paul said, we work out our salvation with trembling and fear. He didn't say we worked it out. He said we work it out. That's present tense. That's ongoing. You read back to the original languages. He didn't say we worked. He said we work. So that being said, if we're to continue to struggle in faith, to improve ourselves and to change and to grow and to make a better world, and that's the whole purpose of this. Jesus took the Torah and he took the Kabbalah and he embraced it into his very being. And he said, I will be the Paschal Lamb, but you must follow. So the question is, when we're doing this great redistribution of wealth and helping poor families to be rich, are we helping annulments to be done? Are we helping families to be whole? Are we helping families ripped apart to heal and to be renewed? Or are we just following ourselves?